Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're tuning in from. Welcome to the Winning at Being You podcast. I'm your host, Coach Mills Rogers. This is a space where we have real conversations with people who are using their voice, their experiences, and their purpose to create impact, not just for themselves, but for others. Today, I am super excited to be joined by Geo Derice, aka the Book Doula. We're going to talk about leadership, transformation, and what it actually looks like to win at being who you are without pretending or performing. If you're watching live, feel free to drop where you're watching from in the comments. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Now let's get into it. Geo Derice is a speaker, author, and strategist who helps experts turn their ideas into powerful books that elevate their voice, expand their influence, and open doors to new opportunities. Having helped bring over 100 books to life, he works with speakers, coaches, and thought leaders to transform their knowledge into authority, building assets that grow their brand and their business. Geo, my brother, I'm so excited to have you today.
I'm glad to be here, man. What's going on?
Geo, man, is one of my favorite people in this whole speaking world and coaching and that sort of thing. And so I guarantee you he's going to have some great analogies today, some great takeaways for whatever you're interested in doing or pursuing or whatever else. So stay tuned because this is going to be good.
Let's do it.
All right. So Geo, for people who may be meeting you for the first time, how do you describe who you are and the work that you do?
Sure. I'm a coach by nature, and I'm really just about helping people see their full potential. Right. And the vehicle that I typically use is either motivational speech or ushering them into being able to package their information in a way that they could be impactful to others. So, but again, the key thing at the core of who I am is to be a coach, to help somebody else be the star, help amplify that, help create the path for you to be able to get there. And like I said, speaking information or helping someone package that information is the vehicle we use to help do that.
And so you talk about packaging information, which is basically helping them put it in the form of a book. That's something that you really, really focus on. And so I want to ask you about that. How did you get into that?
That's a good question. Because it was not something I wanted to do. Never had any intent of wanting to write a book. I grew up never wanting to actually read one. So the fact that I got to write one and then have somebody else read it was crazy. But what happened was when I first started speaking, I wanted to do it as a career. So it was like a shift from me wanting to be, I couldn't be the NFL football player. The lifestyle of an NFL coach was not conducive to somebody who desired a family in the future. So I said, let me be a motivational speaker. And as I was doing it, one of the, I guess, challenges I had was actually getting paid to do it. Like, a lot of people were like, yeah, that's amazing. Come speak to my youth. And I was like, all right, cool. How much you want to contribute or what's your budget? And they were like, budget? Oh, I thought you just go around and just do this for free, out of the kindness of your heart as a give back. And I'm like, no, like this is actually what I do for a living. Like this is what I'm living, and for them offering free opportunities. And so right before I wanted to quit the motivational speaking game, I said, yo, let me just last ditch effort to study who actually getting paid to do this. And every single person that I saw getting paid well or being paid to do this speaking thing were all authors. So I believe in success excludes. So I'm like, if all of y'all authors, I got to do that too. And that's how I became. That's how I wrote a was like, yo, Les Brown got one, Willie Jolly got one, Jim Rohn got one, Zig Ziglar got one. These people had books. I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna join the Me Too and get a book for myself as well.
So that kind of leads into my next question. Why do you think that becoming an author carries so much weight in today's world?
I think there's a couple of things. So number one, the percentage of people who are one is not that high, right? You're talking about if you're in a room with 100 people, you might find one, unless you're at an author conference. Then it's like all the 1%ers decide to go to the same place. So from a numbers perspective, the majority of people are not the creator of information, they're the consumer of information. So automatically it's important because of a numbers thing. There's less of us than they are the readers. The other side of it, why it's important, is because if you look at it, even Becca is like one of the most popular books of all time, if not the most popular book of all time, is the Bible. It's a book, and there's a bunch of information and stories that's in it that has passed the test of time. And so authorship is powerful because it's timeless. Like it's something that outlives us, right? Like long after all these people who've written books back in the days, they still are living today. Their legacy lives on because they decided to take this information and package it into something like a book. So to be able to do something you did 10 years, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and have it still have life today, there's not a lot of things that translates to that. So it's worth the effort, worth the time, and it's already deemed as valuable. Schools have books. They teach us in that format, and we've all had some kind of relationship with the book, one way, shape, or form. Matter of fact, just a fun fact, my son's first words was book.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was
only fitting.
Yeah.
And so what do people misunderstand about what a book can do for their credibility, their platform, or their purpose? Because I know sometimes, I have books and, I have some people that are like, oh, that can be a bestseller or something like that. And, they're automatically jumping to that extreme.
Yeah.
And, for me, that's not even the purpose of it at all.
Right. Yeah, no, I think there's the shallow part of it, which is, like you said, and I'm not saying bestsellers always is shallow, but I'm saying if you're just doing it because you need to have a stamp or a starburst on your book that says you're a bestseller, if that's what you needed to validate the idea, then there's a lack of purpose and purity that comes from that, right? Like that should be the afterthought, shouldn't be the thought that you're after, if that makes sense. I just caught what I just did. That was not that was good. But like the biggest thing and the thing that's misunderstood is not understanding what kind of tool it is. Like when you treat a hammer like a screwdriver, it's just gonna not fulfill its purpose. And so a lot of people misunderstand it and they'll diminish its power. They correct, like I said, they were like, yo, this is a hammer and they're doing this, and it's like, no, it's a screwdriver. Like it's supposed to twist and take the thing out, right? So I think that's where people go wrong. And so to your point where you say, hey, I don't do it for that reason, I'm not doing it because of the bestseller, you understand I'm doing it for a reframe. I'm doing it from a positioning perspective. I'm doing it for the conversation to take place in the room prior to me entering the room, so that way when I get in the room is already warm, right? So I look at it almost like a car that, is cold, but I got automatic starter. So I start the car long before I get in, so that when I get, especially in New York, I live in New York. So in the wintertime, the car gets basically frozen. Automatic starter allows me to be able to get into the car when it's nice and toasty. Now imagine that as a business owner, if you could go into a room and that cold room who'd never heard of you before all had a copy of your book and was able to understand the way you think, the way you view the world, and had some use cases that shows how you operate. Now, by the time you enter the room, they're not asking, who are you? They already know you. They're now just probably asking, can you do what I just read for me? I'd rather that question than who the heck are you?
So when people come to you, when somebody, I guess, refers themselves to, or they've been referred to Brother Geo, and they're like, "Hey, I want to put together this book." I guess the most common misconception that they have, or misperception, or whatever you want to call it, what is, I guess, the error in their thinking that you run across the most?
That they have to say everything. I think one of the misconceptions they have is it's like we're so used to like a tell-all. So they think like it's a tell-all book, and they don't understand like you don't have to tell me everything. What you have to tell me is the information that I need to be able to come to the conclusion that you want me to come to that will be favorable for you and for me. But when you got to tell all, that's your diary that you hit publish on. A lot of people don't care to read your diary if it doesn't solve their problem. And so the misconception is that the book itself was not designed to solve a problem. They just was told, hey, that's a good story. But it's like a good story, like for what? Like what is it a bridge to? What does it unlock? If it's just, oh man, that was Mills, that's crazy. If that's all the book did was that, and it didn't invite me to go and figure out, like, wow, that thing that Mills did, his level of perseverance, his level of, I knocked on 100 doors, and then I found this unique way to get the 100th and first door to open. If it's not going to get them to the next thing that they're after, I think that's where a lot of people go wrong. And so I've always told people, like, you want to identify what door you're opening for somebody and who's that person who's best suited to take what you have and go through that door. Like, and if you don't necessarily have that, then for what I teach, right? I'm not saying other people can have different ideas in terms of books, but for what I teach and for those who come to me, that's where we start. We start with who the book is for, what is it about, and what is it going to do for them? And then ultimately, why is it that Mills is the person that has to be the messenger? And I think all of us are uniquely positioned to deliver a message, even if the message is very similar to what's already out there. Sometimes I just want to hear it from a guy with 16, 17 years of educational experience who has the diverse background of, this kid has this situation and that kid has that situation, how you were able to navigate it. I got to hear it from that person's point of view, not everyone else's point of view about the same topic.
So you're a person that you speak, you write books, you've written your own. Of course, You've helped many, many people with writing their books.
Yeah.
And so obviously you understand that people have important things to say, whether it be on a stage or whether it be in a book. So with that, why do you think so many people have something important to say, but actually never put it out in the world, whether it be on stage or whether it be in a book? What stops them, you feel?
I think the steps, right? I think if I told somebody, just tell me whatever you said or your story, and I'd bring you back a book, everybody'd sign up. I think that there's so many exits that they can go off in the process of publishing, writing a book, that they easily just get lost, right? There's so much information. There's 600 YouTube videos, thousands of TikToks. Like, everyone has their version of how this thing goes. And so that creates confusion. And the confused mind, when it's presented with too many things, just decides to stop altogether. Like, oh, let me take you know what? It's not the right time. And they come with a legitimate excuse as to why they can't do it. And that's where I see a lot of people go wrong, right? Because I do believe a lot of people have something to say. The other part of it too is clout chasing. And when I say clout chasing is, if your story could change one person's life, isn't that worth sharing it? Right? Like, if it could save a life, I'm not saying if it could entertain somebody or make somebody chuckle. I'm not even tearing their life. I mean, they were going to fall into a ditch and die, heard your story and went the opposite direction. Isn't that worth being shared? And I think a lot of people, what happens is they get caught up in, if I can't change 1,000 people's lives or thousands of people's lives, then the one doesn't matter. And I'm like, yeah, we only feel that way until the one life that you want to change was either yours or somebody you cared about. Then all of a sudden, one is enough. And I think we need practice of that when it comes to trying to do. Like the one becomes 1,000. Don't go chase 1,000 from the beginning and just decide the one that you impacted.
Now, you did touch on something about people watching YouTube videos, TikToks, and all that good stuff, as far as the amount of distractions, so to speak, because at the end of the day, it becomes a distraction from them being able to accomplish their goal of writing a book or just having an impact. And so, what are your thoughts on that? You know, how do we as people, you know, address that? You know, what can we do about limiting the distractions? Because again, like you said, all of those things, you know, they can create a lot of uncertainty or overthinking, and you know, they pretty much what do they call it? Paralysis by analysis.
Correct. I think the thing I would say to that is find the one that works for you and stick to that versus picking and choosing from all these different places. Because what happens is everyone has a unique perspective. We're all looking at it. So if you look at it like a 180 degrees, each degree is a different point of view, but we're all looking at the same thing. So if you keep consuming every degree then you got 180 different point of views, you'll never finish a book. You're better off going and saying, let me pick one person who I resonate with, who maybe is most relatable to who I am or what I want to do, and lock in on that person, right? It's like the equivalent of like Kevin Hart is a big star, but he locked in on Eddie Murphy. Eddie Murphy, a big star, he might have locked in on Richard Pryor, right? Like they locked in on somebody and then they imitated. After they imitated, they go ahead and remix and find their own. But I think a lot of people, they're dabbling on a lot of different things. So what happens? Oh, dang, that person said something different. So maybe they're right. And then you go and do research, but you're not doing research on the person themselves. You're looking for another perspective. At some point, what happens is if you go to the doctor and the doctor tells you, here's your diagnosis, here's my solution, and you keep going for second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th opinion, you're gonna die before you ever got healed because you was looking for oh my gosh, the next one might be it. And it's like, well, if the next one might be it, then what was the last one? Didn't you think the same? And so I would just lock into one process, one coach, one teacher versus having a bunch of different ones.
The work that you do, it's all about helping people express what's already in them. It's pretty much just helping them put it into words. What has your own journey taught you about finding and trusting your voice?
Dang, that's a good question. That's a good question. You know, like until I put it on paper, I didn't really know what my thoughts were. Right? Like if you think about thoughts as a tangible thing, they're in your head. When I put it on paper, I'm like, it kind of made it frozen. We're always in a rush to do something. When I put it on paper, I'm like, yo, hold on. Like, that's either good or there's something here that I need to explore further. But it's helped to take something that's on the surface and get some depth. And it's allowed me to see the patterns of, oh my gosh, that thought number one is very similar to thought 7, 8, 9. And when I start to see them on paper, I start to find, oh my gosh, that's my identity. Oh my goodness, this is what I do. In writing it down, it made it stick. Right? Like, and then when it makes it stick, it's easier to pass on. But when you don't put it into paper or I don't put it into writing, it's hard for me to go and organize imaginary things. But when I was able to go ahead and put it on paper, it became like my own personal development program in a sense, because I was able to see what I knew like in my spirit, but now I was able to go and see it in words and see its relationship to all the other words that was out there. So it kind of, long story short, it made it real. It made it all real for me. And then once I was able to see it, it was then something that I could hold. And once you could hold it, there's something that I could also not be able to give.
And so with that, when you've, I guess, been able to make it more concrete, does that make it significantly easier for you to take action, or is there still some, some hesitation, just in your journey?
No, it's not. I would say there's less hesitation. And I say there's less hesitation because there was more involved. The more you involve yourself in something, the harder it is to walk away from it. And so when you're able to write, you pause, you slow down, you analyze, you edit, you refine. All of that time makes the thing stickier. And so for me, like, when I look at that process, I'm like, man, like, there's no turning back because of how far I came. So when you start thinking about people who come out with books, man, I've been trying to write this book for the last 5 years. A lot of times, and this is going to be contrary in thought, because a lot of people will say, hey, try to push people to do it faster. But I don't discount the fact that someone took 5 years, 10 years, 3 years. The more they're thinking about it, the more I know they probably should do it. Because if you have a good idea for a book, it typically go to sleep for too long before it bothers you. Like any good idea goes and says, yo, Bills, you ain't talk about me in a while. We still go together, or do I need to go find another person? And I always like to personify a book idea and make it a person, and then ask it the question of, does it still want to be with me? And if a book idea if you look at it from this perspective, a book idea said, man, I could go into anybody's brain. Which brain will allow me to actually become a thing, or do I stay in their head? And I want to be the type of person who the thought comes and says, yo, put me in Geo's hand, man, because I know I'm going to be able to see life, versus shut me in Joe's brain. And now I'm freaking in jail. I ain't never getting out. Like, right? Like, that's the way I look at it, and kind of like make it playful, but it's a serious thing. Like, it's like, yo, this is the way to make sure it really works. So a roundabout way to answer your question, the longer you spend with it, the harder it is. It's almost like the person who buys something super expensive and then they refuse to get rid of it. They're like, yo, man, get rid of that thing. It's taking up too much space. They probably still keeping it because they how much it costs them to get it. They're like, nah, I can't get rid of it. I got a Peloton Mills that I got in my house, in my crib, that I haven't thrown away. I haven't given it away because I'm like, yo, that's $1,500 no matter how you slice it. The price don't change. And I'm like, I ain't getting rid of this thing. And you can ask me, yo, how many times have you ridden it the last year and a half? I'll tell you, I probably rode it for 15 minutes. And they're like, get rid of it. You don't ride it. I'm like, no. That's still $1,500. I can't get rid of it. And so I think a lot of people, the reason why they're able to leave a book alone is because they didn't spend enough time with it. If you spent enough time with it, you make sure that you find your way back.
In your own journey, what have you had to, I guess, unlearn about yourself in order to become or to reach your potential, to start moving to your maximum potential? I know, like, for myself, there's been a number of things that I've had to, habits maybe that I've had to unlearn, come out of my comfort zone to move in a certain direction. It might have been my perspectives about race, for example, like, I'm Black, and, maybe an organization led by a white person, they're not going to hire me and stuff. And, I had to get out of my own way for things like that. And so I'm just curious, like, with the work that you do, what's something that, that obstacle that's in your mind that you had to say, you know what, man, I got to put that aside. I can't let that dictate what I do.
One of them would be that I have to be super accomplished before I share. That's one of the big ones, right? It's like I have to be at the penthouse in order for me to teach the person who's outside the building. And so what happens, and so what that looks like practically is like, man, you know what? Until I get a doctorate degree, I don't know my stuff enough, so I'm not going to say nothing. And that was one of the biggest ones, right? It's like I'm not qualified to share this information. I don't got a writing degree. My grammar ain't perfect. All these things are like prerequisites that have never been that I have as a cover up for my insecurity or my fear of judgment. I put these things in place to make sure that it justifies when I don't get to the place that I want to go to. Well, here's why. Like, how could you have possibly have expected me to get there with all these hurdles? And what I realized is, and interestingly enough, it was a kid that I was mentoring who changed my perspective on this. And I write about this in one of my books. His name was Ian. And I was talking to Ian, and Ian and I was playing basketball in a classroom. You know, like when you're a kid, you go and have the little trash can in the corner of the classroom, you take up all the paper, and you start trying to, like, you over here Steph Curry and stuff like that. So I told Ian, yo, Ian, I'll bet you $2 you can't make this shot. And I'm like in the back of the room, and the garbage is all the way in front. The garbage can. And Ian said, bet $2. And then Ian proceeded to go from the back of the room, walk all the way to the front, and just let go of the ball and threw it in the garbage. And I said, yo, no, that's not what you talking about. What you doing? Like I said, you know, if you make it and put it in the garbage. He said, I did. And I realized in that moment, I like, yo, like I never told him where he had to shoot it from or whatever. He was just like, you said put it in the garbage. That was the bet. And in that little playful moment, I started to realize that the rules, there are rules. I'm not saying there's no rules, but the question I would ask myself in that moment, and what I would ask everybody who's listening to me right now to ask themselves is it a rule, or is it something you adopted as one? And now that rule that you've adopted is holding you back, but no one else is following that rule. And I think we've seen a lot of people where we get frustrated and think that they're cheating, taking a step, and it's not that. It's just that instead of jumping over the hurdles, in their mind, they just ran through the hurdles and still got to the finish line. Like there was no points docked for them going through. We like, and I get it. Track, yeah, you got to jump over it, but you know, in life, a lot of times it's not just you got to jump over the hurdles. Sometimes you could go around, through, crawl. Like there's other ways. One of my friends told me, Geo, 1 + 3 = 4. 2 + 2 = 4. If you only think that 1 + 3 is the only way to 4, you're limited. And I think that's the part that I would help a lot of people understand. It's like there's more than one way to go ahead and do stuff, and I had to unlearn that just the way that I know may not be the only way to go with something, and that opened up so many things. So now when I hit a dead end, I'm just like, there's another road. It just hasn't been revealed to me yet, and so I gotta stay in the game until the road reveals itself.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the saying, I'm starting to hear it a lot nowadays. There two things can be true.
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
There's more than, or the more, I guess, brutal saying, there's more than one way to skin a cat.
Correct.
That is politically correct nowadays. But
yeah, no, you don't want PETA. You don't need PETA coming after us.
But yeah, there's different ways of going about doing things, and we have to be open-minded to that. And it reminds me of an activity that I used to do a lot. I haven't done it lately, but I probably need to bring it back, where I'd have a basketball on stage and I'm like, hey, I need you to move this basketball from here to wherever. It might be a few feet, but you can't touch it with your hands or anything.
Mm.
And so I have somebody come on stage and they're trying, and they're trying to do all kind of things. Maybe they grab a book or a stick or whatever else, and or they're even trying to blow it. And some of them do actually figure out a way, but then it's kind of like at the end, I'm like, well, was that the most efficient way? It was, and I'll ask the audience, like, was there a more efficient way of doing it? And usually somebody will raise their hand, like, oh, they could have just asked somebody else to pick it up and move it.
Mm.
I'm like,
I like
yeah,
that. I like
yeah,
that. I'm gonna use it too. I might use it Thursday, but like,
yeah.
but
It's a
that's
great
good.
activity.
That's good, man.
Yeah, and
I
it
like
just emphasizes the fact that sometimes we do things, we make things harder than what it needs to be. And also it emphasizes getting help.
100%. Mills, I'm so glad you said that. That's one of the reasons why people don't become authors, because they think they gotta be everything. I gotta edit my book. I gotta design my own book cover. I gotta format my own book. I gotta go and study all these different things. And the people that have been very successful have been the ones who understand, to your point, the past. Like, yo, who else, right? Is the book is called Who Not How. I think Benjamin Hardy or something. Like, it's like that's something that's very powerful, but I don't think a lot of us understand that. It's like, if I go and get somebody else, then that means I'm less than them, because then it's like, it's not about less than them. Is it the result? Is what we leave? It's where we lead from. Did I get the result? I think there was a president that they asked Teddy Roosevelt, "Do you know this?" And he said, "No, but I know he does." Like, I don't need to be knowing everything, And so I think we get caught up with that. So I love the fact that that's a good illustration. A lot of good illustration. I think a lot of people benefit from the fact that they gotta be all, end all, be all in order to make progress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we don't have to do it all on our own, and we don't have to know everything, and no one does know everything. It's funny, my dad used to always say that, why do I need to know everything if it's in a book? I can just go get the book. So his attitude would bring you business.
That's what I'm saying. I needed that. That's good.
And so you're an entrepreneur. You've been in this entrepreneur game for a while, and nowadays on social media can be good, but then there's a lot of things that, in my opinion, and one of those things is that it tries, there's a lot of people out there saying, be your own boss, don't work for the man, and blah, 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 blah. And so what are your thoughts on that? I know you've been an entrepreneur for a long time, and what insights do you have for somebody that's listening?
Yeah, I think the whole be your own boss, fire your boss idea, it underestimates what the job was supposed to do, right? Like, and I think what happens when we think about jobs, we think that we're being owned. And I think that we don't take ownership of our jobs. If we took ownership of our jobs and understood that it was a paid internship or an opportunity to get on the job training to develop skill sets, then all of a sudden I wouldn't hate it as much. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't look at jobs the way I should have. Before I became an entrepreneur, I just thought it was just a means to an end. But I didn't really look for me at the end. If I really just started asking questions, understanding systems, understanding processes, understanding how the systems come about, I think all of those things is invaluable. And so one of the few jobs that I had, it was a small company that was led by an entrepreneur. And the stuff that I learned, the equivalent of me getting a master's degree in business administration. Like, if I didn't get that proximity and the ability to ask these questions and the exposure that a job would provide, then I would have never been able to transfer over. I would have never been able to develop any skills in the first place. And then I wouldn't be able to own my experiences that came after. I was like, yo, you know what? Yo, had I not been working at that job, I would never know what this word meant. Or I would have never known that 9 out of 10 businesses fail. But if you could, but every failure teach you something, so that that one business that succeeded, a collection of all those failures and repurposed them into successes. So they took each of them and made it a stair that they could go and climb, so that they could ultimately get to whatever that mountaintop was. So for everyone who's listening to this and saying, okay, well, I would say go into a job that helps you to develop a skill set that you can then go ahead and own, because if you decide to be an entrepreneur, those are the things that you need to be able to succeed in entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is essentially a job that typically you get paid late, right? Because it's like, because you got to put up all the costs up front. I got to go put in all the time or whatever, and then I got to have somebody else go ahead and say, you know what, I see the effort. Here's some whatever it is that you're doing. It's not the same like a job. A job is every 2 weeks. You know, you're getting a check. In entrepreneurship, it could be every 6 months. I get a check. It could be every 3 months. I get a check, right? So I got to be able to have the skill set, the patience, the soft skills, hard skills to be able to know how to navigate those waters. Because I'll tell you right now, I would almost say entrepreneurship is for the birds. It's not as it is. It's more ugly, pretty. The difference is that, and what I like about it is I have a say in how ugly or pretty it gets. I like the fact that I can contribute to the narrative and shape it for what I want it to be, and that's the beauty of it. But I do understand that I have the ability to shape it because of the skill set that I was developed in a job.
Yeah, I would agree with you, and I would say that 95% of the time, maybe even more than that, is not sexy. The average person would look at it and be like, they would look at my day and be like, man, that's what you got to do.
No, yeah. Like how many news that you hear, how many left on red, how many they didn't even respond at all, right? Like kind of stuff that you got to go through and hope of a yes, right? Like, so there's a lot of stuff that obviously we don't post, right? We don't post the failures. We don't post the not top 10 Sports Center highlights that we do every single day in our lives. And because we're patient and we persevere, you get a big win that kind of doesn't erase the failures. It makes it easier to stomach. I don't think everybody has that stomach. Like not everybody has the capacity to handle that kind of failure. So go get a job, and I'm not saying it's better or worse. It's just you got to know what's best for you. Do you have a high tolerance for risk? Do you have a high tolerance for defeat and still want to keep playing? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, do you want to strike out certain times and say, yo, I'm gonna still go up to the plate? That's not an everybody thing, So yeah, it's different.
I would say, for me, it's just a belief in what I'm doing. Like I know that maybe what I'm offering is good. It's so good. And but of course though, I have the credibility because somebody has maybe told me yes in the past. And so I think
what do you do? Like, so let's say, and I know we have a friendship, so I'm aware of the new things you might try that you didn't get a yes in advance before you went in person. What makes you go after it when the yes is not there in these new ideas, these new opportunities that you're basically creating yourself? How do you navigate that?
Again, it's kind of where, like, I don't know, it's funny because sometimes it's just like, hey, you just got to try something. And especially early on, it's like, okay, I'm going to throw this out there. I'm going to try this. And I think it's super important to talk to people because sometimes they're the ones, especially the ones that you're trying to maybe get to buy your service, They're the ones that can really tell you what they need. And so let's say that I'm like, hey, I got this new program, new training I'm offering, uh, making a cold call or sending an email. A lot of times cold calls work better though. And so you get on the phone with them and they're like, well, that's not quite what we need right now, And chances are if you ask them like, hey, what are you having a problem with? They'll tell you. And it's like, okay, maybe that's something I need to develop. And so that's something that I've learned over the years is that, yeah, I might have an idea, but your clients, the people that you're wanting to buy from you or who you want to serve, they can really tell you what they need.
Yeah.
And develop what they need. And so I'll tweak to try to meet their needs.
Got it. But you would put it out there and see what the feedback is, and you have that long-term mentality and understand that if I put it out there, they're gonna react to it, bad or good, but that is still information that I can use to now make a second iteration of that idea. And it's in that second, third, fourth iteration of it that I'm able to find the yes.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. And again, it's a lot of trial and error though. And oftentimes, like you were mentioning earlier, people don't want to deal with that.
Yeah.
They don't want to deal with that disappointment. And yes, I've been, there's days I get very frustrated. I'm like, golly, man, I know this is good, but nobody's biting on it. And so then you have to factor in other things. Like, is it the cycles?
Talk about it. Talk about the cycles.
Yeah. And so that's where it becomes really important just to kind of understand your market and everything else. And regardless of your business, whether you're talking about books, whether you're talking about training, professional development, food,
all of that, man.
Yeah, all of that.
That's important. The cycles is important. I think that there's what I don't understand, like everything has a rhythm, everything got a beat. And when you don't know what the beat is, like it's just like watching somebody dancing off beat, singing off key. You know what I'm saying? Like it sounds bad, but it's like if they on beat, like they could make a joyful sound or they could make something else. And so when you're not aware of what that cycle looked like, what that rhythm looked like, you could easily abort your purpose because you went and got the right thing at the wrong time. And then you start thinking, man, nobody wants this. Not realizing, what if the season for them being able to say yes was closed? Like their budget is locked. But your offer is good. It's a timing issue. But if you think, oh man, nobody said yes, so I'm just going to pick up my ball and I'm going to go, you might miss out on some gold mine versus like, man, rarely does something good happen or you have a good offer and nobody says yes. That's rare. That is, if it's good, it's very rare that everyone says no. So if everyone says no, something other than the offer might be a problem. And so maybe it's to your point, is it the cycle? Is it the timing? Is it the offer was good, but the packaging that I have? This is why I bring up the book stuff. Because a lot of people are experts and they're like, man, I'm an expert. I should be on that stage talking. I should be the person doing the keynote. This bum over here ain't better than me. But you don't understand, like maybe that person has reached out to them at the right time. So they may have had a lesser message, but their timing was good, so they got it. Or the packaging was so good that they were able to get it because of the fact that you got an expertise, but they got the book. And so the book outdid what a resume could ever do, because the resume, yeah, that's cool, highlight reels, but I want to see a career. You know what I mean? Like I can't call you the best basketball. So that's like me calling Bam Adebayo one of the greatest basketball players of all time because he scored 80 points one time. He good, I'm not having a debate about whether it's Michael Jordan or Bam Adebayo, right? Like Jordan ain't scored 80 in a game ever, but we're not having this argument about whatever because that's a nice thing on your resume. We'll say that fun fact. Bam Adebayo scored 87 points, but I'm not going to be a prisoner of the moment and not realize Michael Jordan's body of work. And that's why I think a lot of people who struggle to sell who they are, their value, I'm starting to now put out into the world this idea of had you presented what you do and what you bring to the table in the best format or container. And if you keep showing your resume, but you want to get entrepreneurial opportunities, you're going to need something more than that. And a book is one of those packages that I have found stand the test of time and gives us the authority, the credibility, and the brand that really helps take things to another level.
And I totally agree. I know me having a book, it definitely has helped me out. I've sold thousands of books over the years, literally thousands. I would probably say 10,000.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's nice.
And to say that I'm somebody who never thought they would write a book, to have sold 10,000, I would say, yeah, because I think the first one I wrote was like in 2017, 2018. And yeah, and they've all been like part of, well, the majority, overwhelming majority have been part of like speaking engagements and things like that. And so again, it's all about packaging your services, your products or whatever else, your gifts for the world to see. And, they say the squeaky wheel gets the oil. And so with that, it doesn't mean that you have to be verbose all the time or be cocky or arrogant, but you do have to be able to share what you have for the world. And you can't just assume that people are going to find you. And so, what you do helps people do that.
No, 100%, man. And I love it. I love to hear the story of the person who says, Geo, this place said that they can't pay me this fee, but because I had a book, they bought a book for every single person in the audience. And the price point for the books itself almost doubled my speaking engagement fee. So they go from like $3,000 to speak, and they're like, "Yeah, I want 4,000." No, we don't got 4,000, but we got the 3,000 for your speaking. And then they go and hear that the person has a book, and they say, "Well, you know what? Let's renegotiate this from a different bank because I have this asset." And now they're like, "Yo, 400 copies of the book at $20 each, and now that's $8,000 in revenue." But now it costs you $1,100. You're walking away with $6,900. Instead of the 3,000 that you was after. Like that's the beauty of it. Or a client I have who's like, Geo, I want to get 10 more less speaking engagements because 10 speaking engagement equals 3 days per engagement away from my children. That's 30 days, Geo, that I don't get to see my kids. That a book would allow me to go and do half of those because of the fact that they're able to like have another thing that they could buy from me. Instead of just like that's the thing that now is starting to get me excited is giving people the leverage and the opportunity to be able to like dictate how they want to play or show up in the spaces that they're in because they now have something other than I'm not just a speaker, an intellectual property that I've been able to package that I can use. And not everybody says yes, right? Not everybody says, yeah, I want a book for every single person in the audience. But what I do know is the person without a book cannot present an offer to the person. That you can't even give them that choice because you don't have it.
And so we're close to the end. And so I just want to ask you this in closing. What do you have coming up? What's on the horizon for you?
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know what the time of this being published, but next week I'm doing a workshop called Map Your Book on the 29th. Of April, which I'm excited about. And it's really going to be about helping people who already have a book on their computer in some way, shape, or form. Yeah, it may need a little refining, a little massaging, but they're like, yo, man, I've been working on this book. It's just not ready yet. The Map Your Book workshop is going to tell you what ready looks like, and what are the steps that you have to take. Because I think a lot of people, they don't move forward because they don't know the step that comes after they cross the finish line that's right in front of them. And so that unknown becomes the enemy, becomes a fear, that uncertainty. And so Map Your Book is going to be about just giving the clarity that's necessary so that people could go and say, man, I now see the finish line. And I'm hoping that in them seeing the line, that they're going to be able to go and be excited enough to want to go and sprint because the fog has been removed. So I'm doing that. The other thing is I got a curriculum that's going to hopefully go into schools next year or the year after, depending on capacity. That's going to help people own their story. I want to teach to the inner cities the idea of publishing, the idea of owning your intellectual property, the idea of you monetizing your own story, because the government has monetized their prediction of your story, right? Like they tell you, we decide if we're going to build a jail based on what you've done since once you're like third grade or whatever, or kindergarten or whatever. So if people want to go, people are going to monetize your narrative, you should be also able to do the same. And so I'm going to be in this curriculum we've built. We've literally broken down the whole self-publishing business side of it, in addition to helping people learn how to tell their story. So that's some of the stuff that we got coming up.
Love that. Bringing solutions instead of just talking about it.
Yeah. No, don't cry about, oh my God, you're taking books out of schools and no one wants to listen. I'm gonna make it a problem because we're gonna have everybody have a book, and then now you ain't gonna stop us. I'll sell them in the street. Like every kid gonna have a book. Yo, buy my book. Instead of like saying Mills, like think about this. Imagine instead of people doing fundraising where they keep selling chocolates and cookies with high fructose corn syrup, that they were selling and fundraising with a book. The candy is not worth $20. You can go and do fundraising a lot faster selling a book. Hey, I wrote a book. Do you mind supporting us? How much does the book cost? $20. But if it's normally $20, but if you're doing a special 2 for $20, they're still able to make more money per book than what would have been made had they just sold M&Ms or whatever version of the thing that they would have done. So I'm excited to go into that space as well, with the curriculum, to teach people like, yo, man, like we need to go and do fundraising a little bit different.
Well, there you have it, folks. Geo Derice, aka the Book Doula. Thank you so much, Geo, for blessing us with your presence today. So much wisdom and knowledge that you share.
Thank you for having me, as always. You know, I look forward to being back.
Well, there you have it, folks. Winning at being you. Change happens one person at a time, 1 second at a time. Let's go.